I need to see our speakers, so I'm going to move to the front here. So Dr. Orkolomi kind of set the stage for us. Approximately 25% of our students identify themselves as first-generation college students. I'm not one of them. My parents both went to college, so for me, it was pretty obvious, I'm going to go to college. For you, however, as a first-generation college student, you didn't necessarily have that role model. So the first question, I'd like to begin with our students here. Why were you motivated to attend college? And now that you've been here, I know you're both planning on transferring. Do you anticipate going even further on in higher ed?
Yeah, so I was fascinated by the opportunities that could be presented by receiving a college education. I knew that it could open many doorways for me for my career and for personal growth, and I am continuing my education at Temple, so I'll be there in the spring.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, when your parents go to college, it's kind of innate. You know that you're going to go to college. However, both of my parents didn't push me into going to college. They told me that I had options. They said, if you want to go to college, you can, and you need to figure that out for yourself, or you can enter the workforce. So I feel like I really had to find that intrinsic motivation to go to college and further myself. I almost didn't because I was not sure what I wanted to major in. So I was really happy when I came to Montco and I was accepted into the honors program, and they told me that you can be a liberal studies major and you can figure out what you want to major in and take your time to figure it out here. And that's really why I started here and really why I'm now completing my associates. And I will be transferring this spring to finish my bachelor's degree in finance and hopefully someday get my master's. So education has definitely become a very important aspect of my life.
You want me to go next? All right. So for me, it was really peer influence that made me go to college. I'm very local. We could walk to where I went to grade school, probably St. Rosalima. I went to grade school. St. Rosalima Parish is combined North Wales, which is really kind of blue collar, lower middle class folks, and then Gwynedd Valley, which, if anybody's from Gwynedd Valley, a little bit higher echelon folks. So some of my friends were from Gwynedd Valley, so I actually would go to their home and be like, this is pretty nice, right? And I realized I was just as smart, if not smarter, than all of them. So then when I went to Lansdale Catholic, my peer group, all college bound, all smart kids, so it wasn't even a question. Now for my parents, they were fascinated. Why are you trying so hard in school? You don't have to get all A's, we will still love you. But I was very competitive. My friends were very competitive. We just wanted to achieve more. So I would say it's really peer influence that was the primary driver that made me go to college.
You know, in a word, fear. Fear. So I grew up in South Philadelphia, housing projects, Wilson Park housing projects in South Philadelphia, for those of you who are familiar. And, you know, at a very young age, I was introduced to the difficulties that would become the norm for certain folks who are fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, depending on your perspective, to grow up in that sort of environment. So I tell students that my intrinsic motivation is predicated on the notion that my existence, my very survival, depended on me getting out of those projects. At a very young age, I saw my first death. That was at the age of 10. I would see 3 more, and I would literally watch one friend of a friend, become sort of like a brother, bleed out over 47 minutes while we waited for the police to arrive from 24th and Wolf. And if you know anything about Wilson Park housing projects, you know that 24th and Wolf is right across the street. But we also know that they have to make sure that it's safe to enter before they send any personnel there. So when I think about what's expected of us in life and in industry, what I remind our students with a lot of love is that it's no warm blanket thumb in the mouth feeling out there. It's my job to give it to you as boldly and rawly and with as much love as I possibly can, because I do believe that our very survival is predicated on it.
Thank you. I want to follow that up with when you finally did get to college then, compared to your non-first generation college students, what was unique for you? People who were already prepared to go to college or were planning on that, they had certain expectations. What did you find unique in your experience? And let's start with Nicoletta this time and work our way down.
Sure. So I would say mainly what I found unique was that when I came here, most students already had a network of people that could help them. And that network was mainly composed of their family, their parents, and their siblings who had already went through college. I didn't have that network. So I kind of had to figure it all out on my own. I had to figure out how to apply for FAFSA, the difference between loans and grants, and how to apply for scholarships. And I feel really lucky that I was accepted into the honors program and that I was helped out through my advisor that way, because if I hadn't been, I don't know that I would be in college right now, because there was no one that sat down with me and said, hey, you need to apply to colleges, you need to fill out your FAFSA by this time. And so when college kind of rolled around, I felt like I didn't know what I was going to do. I really look back and I'm really appreciative that I was accepted into the honors program and that I was helped as much as I was, because otherwise I would not be here now.
The uniqueness in my experience was such this dichotomy that the only school that I applied to was Penn State University. And I applied by walking to or taking a bus to 401 North Broad Street, where there was a recruitment initiative back in 1985. They literally bused us to State College, where we stayed over the weekend, and part of that weekend stay was taking the SAT exam. And fortunately enough, I was, I performed well enough, I guess, to be admitted into the program. I'll tell you this, though. One of the things I'm appreciative about my mother was that she always set dreams for us. And she always told me, Damon, you're going to be a lawyer. And, I believe that. So when I applied to Penn State, I applied and I was accepted as a student of history. And it was those experiences at Penn State and that dichotomy between going from a very poor socioeconomic environment to a very affluent and being around folks. And at that time, Penn State was 99% white, 99% white. And here I am. And I'll tell you, it wasn't, I had issues. Okay? There's some scar tissue that's built when you had a sort of life experience. But one of the unique experiences was that I had a roommate by the name of William J. Burleson III, who come from a wealthy family. He was an upperclassman, and he worked his aspirin off. Vicki, I'm being nice. The students will tell you I got a potty mouth, but in a spirit of a video, and we'll keep it clean. But it was that exchange and that experience that helped formulate work ethic. Because as many resources as this guy had, he was an accounting major, and he studied, and he worked hard, and I learned how to learn by watching him.
Share with you. So neither of my parents graduated high school. My mom went to the 8th grade. My dad went to the 10th grade. Dad worked in a factory. Mom worked at J.C. Penney. She babysat. They were scrappy. They always made a buck. So I never felt like I was poor. But when it was time to go to college, the whole financial thing was very daunting because neither of them were really good at filling out forms. My mom lived to her late 70s, and she had a hard time filling out a check if it was more than just a couple $100. So there's things that I think we just take for granted that, like filling out an application, that students are going to be able to do that. And my parents were really not helpful, not because they didn't want to help, but they didn't know. Funny story, so freshman year of college, I realized I'm going to have to find a way to pay money that was left over not covered by a scholarship. And I said, Mom, it's $6,000 a semester. And she's like, right. And I'm like, so that's $12,000. No, it's $6,000. I'm like, Mom, it's $6,000. Mom didn't know that a semester was part of the year. Do you see it like that? And you would think, that's such a subtle little thing. That's a big deal. So my parents, I could have used some help with the paperwork. I probably could have gotten a heck of a lot more financial aid, but I just didn't even know what to do. Yeah, but I was fortunate. I did get a scholarship from my dad's union. He was in a union, International Association of Machinists, thank you very much. And I did get a really nice scholarship from them.
One thing that I thought was unique for me was the change in my mindset and what I perceived college to be. When I got to college, I had no expectations of what it was like to be a college student. So figuring everything out on my own, working full time and trying to do school full time was really rough. And there was moments where I questioned if college was for me, just due to the fact that I didn't know what I was studying. I didn't know if I was going in the right direction or not. But changing my mindset and really becoming diligent really helped me just get through Monco. Yeah.
Thank you all. Really good answers. We're going to touch on some more of those topics as we go along. I'm actually going to piggy off of Nicoletta's first comment and kind of transition into network, belonging. As Dr. Orkolomi suggested, this is our year of belonging at the college. So I have a couple data points for you. In a recent survey of all students, but just looking at the first generation college students, 71% of Monco first generation college students either strongly agreed or agreed to the statement, "I feel like I belong at Montgomery County Community College." Data point number 2, same group of students, 63% of them agreed to the statement, "I have one or more friends at Montgomery County Community College." So the question I pose to you, and some of you have already answered this a little bit, is do you feel connected here or at the college you attended, or did you feel connected? And how did you make that happen if, as both of you mentioned with your answers, you didn't have that network to start? Let's start, we'll start with Damon this time and work our way to Teresa down.
Okay, so when you talk about a sense of belonging, one of the things that brings me to this college every day is the opportunity to heal. And when I look over there in that left side of the room, I see a few of my students from this semester. And they'll tell you that the first day of class, I tell the story of where I've come from. And I think it's partly to ensure that they understand we all come with our stuff, right? And it's how we handle and process our stuff that determines success for us out there. But in here, we're going to work it through together. And we're going to get raw. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be safe. And I can tell you that I pushed as many envelopes as I possibly can, and it's been rehabilitating, and it has also been rewarding, I think, for the students. So I view the students an extension of my family. And Pell Chat, I'll tell the students, you're just a blessing for me, and I can accrue. I need as many as I can accrue, and you're a multiple of that blessing. And so your success is my success. Let's get in.
Now I forget even what the question is. I so enjoyed your answer so much.
So
Oh my
we're
gosh.
talking about what
Being
about
connectedness. Yes. So I went to Chestnut Hill College, and it's funny, before we started our panel, you asked me, why would you go there? I really couldn't afford to go to a school that was too far away. So I live in North Wales. Chestnut Hill is about a 25-minute drive. I did live on campus, but I needed to go somewhere where my dad could drop me off and pick me up. So that's one of the reasons I picked Chestnut Hill. Plus, it was all girls. It was very safe. Safety factor was huge for me. I was a timid kid. But I did feel connected in that intellectually I never doubted my intelligence. I knew I was a bright kid. So, and I was as good as anybody there in terms of intellect, so I never ever questioned that. But what was a little weird is that there were a lot of really wealthy girls that went there, wealth beyond what I've ever imagined. I remember my roommate coming in the dorm with her boxes of clothes and Papagallo shoes and Izod shirts. She'd put the collar up, and I was shopping at Montgomery Mall and the Deb shop, I could feel a difference there. That's all right, the Deb shop was a good place. Some of us shop there. Let's not bash the Deb shop, it's not there anymore. But I could tell just from a financial aspect, I was in a very different world. We had a young lady whose father owned she was from the Philippines, owned the company that made the clothes for Ralph Lauren, and her gown for our formal was made for her. We had another one who her dad was part of the Bacardi rum family. So they were my friends, but you could tell that was where the difference was in terms of, our clothing styles, where we took vacation, but intellect, no question. I never doubted that.
Can I make one observation? Just to exchange on the dichotomy, I hid my intelligence.
Wow.
Because it was safer.
Wow.
It was safer. So I don't have to hide anymore.
That's nice.
That's empowering.
Yes.
I don't have to hide anymore. That's why the wall is decked the way it is. It's liberation. It's freedom. It's hope.
Well, I'll speak after that. Thank you. So what I've really noticed in talking to friends of mine who go to four-year colleges versus my own experience and the experience of other people that are in two-year schools. In four-year schools, you're kind of given a community because most of them stay in dorms. You become friends with the people you're in your dorm with. You become friends with the people you eat in the cafeteria with, and that becomes your group. At Montco, we all have different experiences. I know I personally work, and it's hard for me to be on campus as long as other people. What I've realized here is that no one's going to give you a community. You have to find that community yourself. So I know that I found my community originally. I've already mentioned the honors program, but in the honors program, I was surrounded by other people that wanted to go far intellectually and wanted to push themselves and wanted to push past their own personal barriers. And I think from that really motivated me to find other groups of people I would click with. And I mentioned that in the beginning of my college experience, I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I remember on club day, there's a club day here and every club attends, and I remember I wrote down my name on every single piece of paper. Because that's the kind of person I am, and I showed up for the majority of those meetings. And a lot of them didn't click for me, but some of them did, and I'm here 3 years later, and these, as Damon has said, these are our families now, these are our communities. But particularly in community college, no one's going to give you that friend group, no one's going to give you that community. And if you don't go out of your way to find it, you're just not going to have it, particularly in a place like Montco, but in a place where you could have such a strong community, because I know I found mine.
Yeah, I also think Montco is, I've made a lot of meaningful connections here. It was a lot easier at first taking gen eds and lower level classes, but as soon as you start taking higher level classes, you don't really see people that are like yourself, or like myself, me being a minority. But luckily, I've always been very social, and I'm not afraid to make friends, so that hasn't been difficult for me. But that might not be the same for a person who's learning English and trying to take classes. So.
Thank you very much. Fantastic answers. To follow up, so establishing the social network is important as well too. What other things did you find particularly difficult as a first-generation college student? I know Teresa mentioned the forms. There's a lot of research out there that the terms we use, provost, registrar, those are things that no one knows what those people do. So what other things, just let that go. What other things did you find difficult as a first-generation college student, and what helped you, or who helped you overcome and succeed those? Start down at this end with Carlos.
Yeah, for me, I think it was the lack of guidance. Not really having a family that pushed me to go to college. I had to push myself to go to college, honestly. And a lot of other students, maybe throughout high school, there was people preparing for the SATs where I didn't know I had to take a SAT till it was it wasn't too late, but if I would have been more prepared, it would have been a lot easier for me. And now that I'm transferring, I'm filling out papers like FAFSA and stuff, and I'm taking way too much time trying to figure out everything on my own, when it might have been easier if my parents would have done it before. So the lack of guidance is what has been difficult for me.
I can go ahead. Definitely had the same experiences, not having parents and siblings that could guide me through that. But what I would say that has been most challenging for me has really been my own personal barriers. I feel like the best thing I've learned while I've been at Monco was to ask for help. And I'm thankful that I figured that out early, and that's what I tell every student, that when you have a problem, whatever that problem is, you need to ask for help. And I feel like, especially just my personality type, and I think the personality types of a lot of first-generation students, because you have to be a certain kind of person to get yourself into college and be the first one in your family to do it. You kind of have to be independent, self-sufficient, and be willing to push yourself. And I feel like in the beginning, I was really afraid to ask for help. And I think back to my first semester when I was probably about the first week of class, and the library was closing, and I was sitting in the library, and I must have just given off the air of being frustrated and not, just very stressed out. And a librarian walked up to me and said, "You okay? We're closing the library. Can I help you?" And she was like, "Can I help you with something?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been staring at this syllabus for an hour. I have no idea what is due. I'm very confused, and I didn't have my parents to go to say, hey, I have this 20-page syllabus. I have no idea what's due tomorrow. I have no idea what's due for the rest of the semester. I don't even know where to buy books." And it was that librarian that said, "Okay, you just need to ask for help, schedule a time, and come in with me tomorrow." And that librarian sat with me for an hour and explained how a syllabus works, which sounds so simple, but it's not, if no one has ever explained it to you before. And it was that librarian that told me, from now on, you just need to ask for help. Even if it seems silly, it's not. Because especially I've realized the administration here, no one has ever made me feel like silly for asking a simple question. So I feel like that's really what I've learned over my course of being here, is just to ask for help.
So twofold. One, and I couldn't echo Nicoletta's sentiment more than enough. So when I left South Philadelphia, it was 13. I got booted out to my dad's house, who had remarried. But let me tell you something that we as professors take for granted. What I didn't realize was how important that love was. That love. Now, my mother just had a difficult time saying, "I love you." Right? And when I moved to Southwest Philadelphia, we had curfew. When I was in South Philly, we could do what we want. So that structure, and it wasn't a warm blanket, okay? That structure was an adjustment, and there was some pain that came with that structure. But I tell you that because my dad was District Council 33, electrician, Philadelphia, 35 years. So he was capable, but my mother was proud. But when I went to Penn State, I had to learn how to learn. And I had resources, and it was that hustle. You know, the only thing I had to do, she's nodding her head, she know what I'm talking about. All I had to do was think about that hustle in South Philadelphia. Okay? You want to survive, you got to get that hustle on. So I had to grind. So I started working on every semester. I tell Pal Chad this all the time. Every semester, I was in that registrar's office doing what?
Knocking down doors.
Asking for money. Knocking down doors. Every semester, they said, and it would be, this is 1985, so you got to remember this. Computers weren't where it was. It'd be 1,000 of us in line, and they say, "Mr. Gray, you owe us," and then they say the number. And then I look at them like, "Yeah, I know. I don't have it. You know, I don't have nowhere else to go. So what are we going to do?" And we would do this song and dance every semester. I walked away from Penn State owing $4,000. That's it.
Wow. So difficulties, other difficulties. I think one of them is just deciding a course of study. Because you're spending a lot of money, and I was spending a lot of money back in the 80s. Y'all are spending a whole lot more money now. So it shouldn't just be done on a whim. I have to say, my major was selected kind of on a whim. Because mom's like, you could be whatever you want to be. I don't know, and I only knew a finite number of jobs because you only know what you see, right? So I saw nuns, I could be a nun, right? I could be a you only know what you see. So in our neighborhood, because I grew up in North Wales, a lot of people worked at Merck, right? And they seemed to have nice stuff. So I'm like, well, the people at Merck, I guess they were science people, right? And I liked my science teacher in high school, so I picked biology and chemistry primarily because it was something that I saw that I knew. But the reality is, I'm not wired to work in a lab. I mean, you've only known me a couple minutes. You're like, she doesn't belong in a lab. You know that. But yet, like, that was the course of study that I took to prepare me to work in a lab. So now I totally use the scientific knowledge. I know you're STEM, so I don't want to, but I use that. But the reality is, if I had had some guidance, if I had had maybe some assessments that say, Teresa, this is really how you're wired, I should have majored in maybe psychology, I should have majored in business, because really that's what I use most now. But it's all good, you know, I get the green wedge in Trivial Pursuit, it's all good, right, the science knowledge, but I wish I had had some guidance around selecting a course of study.
Can I say something real quick about that?
Please.
Because I do think you bring home a very good point that I do want to make clear. So when I graduated in 1989, I had 4 job offers with that history degree. Vanguard was the lowest at $15,991, and State Farm Insurance as a fire claims adjuster was highest at 40-something thousand. So I tell you that because you try majoring in history today and see what happens. So you'll incur all this debt because we have a model that incentivizes you to borrow, and then you can't file, you can put anything else in bankruptcy, but you can't include them student loans. And so it now becomes that decision that you just talked about, where it was very cavalier for me. My mom told me I was going to be a lawyer. Okay, I'll be a lawyer. This is what you study. If you're a lawyer, would cost me today.
Yes.
So I want to make that point clear.
Yes.
Absolutely, thank you. And we'll keep you in STEM as an honorary member, Teresa. It's okay.
Awesome. Still love it, still love it.
So actually, you guys all kind of bring up a very similar theme of support and guidance. And so that's kind of the next few questions are on that. So another data point for us in the same survey, approximately 80% of first-gen students strongly agreed to the statement, the resources I need from the college to be a successful student are readily available. So my question to you is, what does or did your college do to help you and other first-generation college students? And why don't we start at the other end this time? We'll start with Teresa and work our way down towards Carlos.
You know, it's sad. They really didn't provide a lot of help. They really didn't. I had to figure stuff out on my own. And this is why I went for 2 years. I was incurring debt and I was frightened. I left and I went to Prudential and got a job because I thought, I don't want to incur all this debt. Now, the beautiful thing about getting a job at Prudential back at that time, they had to, thank you, sir, tuition reimbursement. And they reimbursed just about 100%, which was nice. But that's why I didn't stay at Chestnut Hill on campus, because I couldn't afford it. And most of the people who were there, the vast majority, were from such wealth, from such means. There were just a handful of us, what I called scholarship kids. And that's why I left. So to be honest, yeah, they didn't really do a whole lot back in the 80s. I don't want to bash them now. They're probably awesome. But yeah, they didn't do a whole lot.
Well, I'd already articulated, I think Penn State, because they were trying to proactively increase their minority numbers, they had already put a process in place. So let me just put you some perspective on that process. So I talked to you about William J. Burleson III, my roommate, who was an upperclassman. On I think it was our second day, coming in, I had on my sheepskin, coming from Philly, so I had my sheepskin, I had on my trees, my Timberland boots, had on my gazelles, right? So I'm coming in there, I throw on some hardcore rap, and the guy above me starts banging on the floor and says, "Turn that effing jungle music down." Okay, so I'm coming from Philly, still a little crunchy, right? I used to box, was very good, so I said, I'm gonna go tighten them up. Bill, who was about 5'4", stop! Look at this white boy like, what? Sit down. And we had a conversation. And so I'm prideful about Penn State in that sense that I don't know if it was lucky enough that I got Bill Burson, but that experience changed the trajectory of my experience at Penn State. Now, I'm not going to suggest to you that it was easy. It wasn't. But it prepared me for Vanguard, which was my first job out, and just as lily white. So what I would say to them to make it better, I think they could have done a better job at reflecting me and people that look like me. So I got enough white, right? In my dorm, in the classroom, with the professors, you know. I mean, it helps to have someone that look like you. So I think if I were to counsel them, it would be, if you're going to do that to increase your numbers, then you're going to have to be a little more deliberate in addressing some of those needs. Because listen, most of us come with scar tissue, man. And it's not that we're not redeemable. And I'll talk to you, hopefully I'll have an opportunity to talk about this MIT study that talked about the lost Einsteins. To further articulate that point, but I think we could do a better job of purposely integrating maybe some sort of mentorship program, which we do here at Monaco pretty well.
So when I think through my experience at Monaco, I can think of a million ways that they have helped me. But when I really think about it too, Monaco has only helped me when I asked for that help. And I've talked about that before with asking and needing help and reaching out for help. Monaco has helped me with my resume, with job interviews, with my LinkedIn, with everything. But it's only happened when I reached out and I said, hey, I need help in this, I need help in this. Part of what I tried to do last year, I was the president of Phi Beta Lambda, which is our business society here, is help students realize that now is the time to work on yourself, to get your resume, not when you graduate. Now is the time to apply for internships and work in those internships and work on your job interview experience, not when you graduate and you have a degree and nothing else. So I feel like I can think of a million ways that Monaco has helped me, but my best advice is to reach out for that help.
Yeah, and it's funny because so I'm the president of the computer science club here at Monaco, and I've had I was on the same mission this semester. I actually had somebody from Google come speak to our students about what it's like to be a software engineer in the field, and I would the reason I've been doing things like that is because people are unaware of the opportunities that are out there. And I feel as though, unlike you, I feel as though Monaco hasn't really helped me much. I mean, I think this is a good step in the right direction, but I don't share the same experience as you. So maybe I should have asked for more help.
I appreciate everyone's honesty on that. It is certainly enlightening, and that's why we're doing this, to understand your perspective, because it's completely different than many of us experienced when we went to college. Kind of a follow-up, and some of you already answered this, to what services, what support specifically, let's say, would you appreciate from Monaco, in the case for you two, or any school in the case for Damon and Teresa? Do you want to start, Damon?
Yeah, I think I was talking to Nicolette about this earlier, actually. And she was telling me how she has found so many resources here, but I think maybe it's the lack of promotion of those events that they have that I did not. That's why I didn't know about them. But I was thinking maybe having informative sessions on what the transferring process is like, or what is a loan, or what is FAFSA. I think that would be really helpful, along with maybe a mentorship program too, where you pair a student with somebody who is like themselves or not like themselves, just to help them prepare for the real world, because it's difficult without guidance.
I would definitely agree. I would say that there are so many resources available at the college, but very often they're not being taken advantage of, and I know that because I've showed up for things here, something that's great, like help for FAFSA, right? Something that you struggle with, I struggle with, many first-generation college students struggle with, and there'll be about 3 people there. Why is that? Why are there no students there when we're all sharing the same struggles? Obviously, it's a promotion issue, and that these resources need to be made available, and students need to know. And we talked about it this morning. in the spring, we actually spoke with the Interclub Council about having a mentorship program, and I know that that's starting to be built, but I think that that's going to need a lot of input. I think having come in and had a mentor, someone, I've been here for 2 years. I know that if I was matched up with someone who's a first semester student, I could give them all of the knowledge that I've acquired over 2 years of being here. Because I feel like the way Monco works is after 2 years, you kind of have it figured out by the end. But then you're leaving. And then you have to figure it all out again at your new school. And I feel like four-year schools have kind of a better setup with that, and you can reach out to students that have been there for 4 years, and very often there's already mentor programs set up, but we don't have something like that set up at the college yet. And I hope that that actually happens for us, because I know that that would have been very helpful for me.
So I'm gonna approach this from a couple of perspectives, as a student and as a sort of a professor. So as a professor, I think hanging around Pell Chat for a couple of years, I think you see some themes, and I try to balance the desire to look and ask for help, right? So you have to create an environment where some of this stuff you just got to do. And I think we run the risk, and we always have to balance how much paternity we offer versus how much paternity we offer relative to what you're going to get when you're out there in corporate America. And so what we do at the business club is we give you the business version. And so I think it becomes sort of second nature that you go and get it. So I'm throwing caution in the wind in terms of how we go about approaching that. And then as a student, I'll tell you something that's unique for me. For the first time, I can honestly say in my years in academia, so I like a psychopath, I decided to enroll in this doctoral program at Drexel's LeBeau School of Business. And I'm doing a Doctor of Business Administration. And, one of the things that was so remarkable about this experience thus far was the digs that they put us in. So you get this fire hose, right? And, we had to develop this survey. And then not only you have to develop the survey, it's got to be proven validity-wise and all this other stuff, right? But you only had a couple of weeks, and then you got to come up with this theoretical construct. But long story short is, it's the first time in my life where I actually can depend on someone that was a peer. It was a student of mine. And so I think that purposeful dig, and then what so happened, one of my colleagues, so we were supposed to distribute these surveys, right? But we were waiting on the professor because she said that she was going to provide high-level feedback. So one of the guys in our dig just sent his survey and then told us. I'm like, shoot, I didn't send mine. And then the other guy said, yeah, I didn't send mine either. He didn't even set it up in Qualtrics. So the guy, my other dig guy, helped me set it up in Qualtrics, and then the next day, I was the only one on the dig, so I helped him set it up on Qualtrics. So it's this like collaboration and this spirit of unity where we're all just saying, look, this is hard. And as smart as we are, this ain't gonna be easy if we can't lean on somebody else. And so I try to emulate that in the classroom, not to a whole lot of success because we got various levels, but that's the difference experience that I had would be that I've never had that before in a lot of schooling. I've never had that before. And it's actually enriching.
So what support? Well, first of all, I think this organization cares about this because you're having this conversation. I mean, the fact that this is so rich. I wonder if when people enroll here, is there a question that says, are you a first generation student? And identify them and proactively offer help. Because how would you know? I mean, you probably wouldn't. So I think asking that question identifies and providing support. But the second thing is really on us as students. And I had, and didn't realize it, had a terrible fear of authority. So I wasn't going to go to a teacher or an administrator at the college and ask questions because, I mean, back then you went to 12 years of Catholic school. You were a little afraid of authority. I'm just going to put that out there. So I felt like it wasn't for me to ask. Like I should have to just figure, no. So I think encouraging, mentoring, getting people to recognize, seek things out for yourself. If I had done that, I wouldn't have had to leave after 2 years. Glad I did, though. Got the job with Prudential, set the whole stage for what I do now. The universe was at work, no complaints. But if I had asked those questions, I know somebody at that college would have said, hey, sit down, let me help you with this. I was terrified to ask those questions. So there are my thoughts. If you guys make it easy and pre-identify, I think that's awesome. Otherwise, give the advice. And you're doing it, Nicoletta. You're asking the questions. I'm like, look at how brave you are. That's a brave thing.
I agree. Lots of great advice. I'm going to kind of wrap up with a similar question, actually. So our last statistic today is about 41% of total dropouts in the United States are first-generation students. What would your 41% of dropouts, college dropouts in the United States, are first-generation students? What would be your top piece of advice to a fellow first-generation college student? And we can't use ask for help, because you've all said that already. So you need your second piece of advice. We'll start whoever has it first.
Let's start. I would say don't give up. I know it sucks to feel out of place, but you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And it's okay to not fit in, because your uniqueness is what you bring to the table. So, yeah, just don't give up.
I would say, besides seeking out help, which I would say is the most important, I would say that finding a community is probably the best thing you can do as a first-generation college student, but as a college student and as a person, is find a community that's going to lift you up and support you, because you are a reflection of the people that are around you. And if those people around you are goal-driven and working to be the best version of themselves, then you will work to be the best version of yourself. And I think that the best thing I did was become involved in Phi Beta Lambda, in the honors program, in Phi Theta Kappa. Without a doubt, it drove me to where I am now.
So, for me, I'm always a dreamer, right? And so I always tell students, you got to dream, but that's not enough. You got to believe. You got to believe. And you're going to have a lot of people tell you no. If I listened to the naysayers, I'd be dead. I'd be in jail. But I believed. Okay? Then got to work. Just got to work. And there's no getting around that. And so everything that I do is intrinsically motivated, because I know I'm just one bad decision from being where I was at 11. So I lost a lot in those projects. A lot was taken away from me. But you know what? No one can take away my education. It's mine. I own it. I own it. And I'm free. And I don't hurt as much as I used to. So that would be my advice.
I think I would ask them, have some clarity around what it is you want from your life. So maybe you don't need the college degree, but I want you to have clarity around what you want from your life. And if you want to work in an office environment, if you want to work for, it just makes it easier to have a 4-year degree in something, anything. It's the ticket for admission. So if that's what your plan is, you want to work for a company, go back, finish it. Make that happen. Now, maybe you're entrepreneurial. And let me tell you, I'm blessed with a membership at the Pyramid Club. There's a lot of young people there that do not have college degrees, and they are kicking butt and taking names. But it's because they're scrappy, they're smart, and they're well-connected. And if you have that kind of personality where you're scrappy, you're smart, and you make the right connections, maybe you don't need the degree. But you have to be purposeful in that choice. You have to know yourself and know that by not finishing, that's a choice you're making, and it's going to make it harder for you. It's going to limit the number of choices you have. But I'm not going to poo-poo you if you say, T, I'm ready to roll. I got the connections. I got the smarts. I don't need, go forth, make it happen. And I see people doing that. But be purposeful in that choice. That would be my advice.
Thank you all. Fantastic advice from all of you. We have a few minutes left here. We could take a couple questions from the audience if there are others. Make sure you turn on the mic, please.
Is it on? It is on. I have to shout out for the power thing. I always include Paulo Freire in my teaching philosophy, which is that knowledge gives you that power, and they can't take it away. But I'd like to address the students at this point and say, I want you to ask for help. I physically can't drag students to office hours, but I have made it a requirement in some classes to come because I think some of the problems getting over that door. I'm a first-generation college attendee as well. I tell stories in class about what it's like to not feel that you belong there. But what could we do to get you to come in? What do you think we would tell a classroom professor to do to get you to come in my door? So.
It's hard to articulate. Okay. Don't like that. It's hard to articulate the value that office hours do bring, but I definitely would push and say to do that. I know that my first semester I was in an honors English class, and I've always been a fairly decent writer. And I remember the first 2 papers I did for this professor, he wrote on the bottom of every one of my paragraphs and wrote, no transitions. And after the first essay I went, okay, my transitions in between my paragraphs aren't good enough, I'll fix it. Second essay, no transitions. And I remember just being very frustrated because I had put in that extra work. And I came to him during office hours and I said, hey, I put in the extra work to make these, and he explained to me, these aren't even transition sentences. Something that had never been explained to me apparently through my entire writing career, and I had always been a fairly decent writer. I feel like during those office hours, after you go once, I feel like you know the value of it, but it is definitely just trying to get those students to understand how beneficial just speaking directly to a professor is. I feel like very often I've talked to other students and they've said they've struggled in classes that I maybe haven't struggled in, and then I talk about the professor and you can tell they obviously don't have a relationship with the professor. And had they gone once, they would have had that benefit. So that'd be my advice, just to try to articulate the value of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never been to office hours, and I've taken a lot of classes here at Monco. I think though, like if you said you found it really beneficial after the first time, maybe making if the teachers make it a requirement to go once, maybe that'll drag in more students to start going. But now I might have to check office hours out.
Was that Schuster?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted, sounds like him. All right. So first, for everyone in the room, there's a book by Alfred Librano called Limbo, Blue Collar Dreams, Blue Collar Roots, White Collar Dreams, which I actually make my students in English 101 read part of, which is about exactly this issue. And he calls people who are first generation college students straddlers, where they have one foot in the old world and one foot in the new world, and how hard it is, both in college and after college, to sort of navigate that. I'm second generation college, but I call myself 1.5 because my dad dropped out of Caltech and my mom went to a college that doesn't exist anymore, and they weren't all that helpful. So a lot of what you're saying makes sense. I want to ask you all 100 questions, but I'm going to limit myself to this. As an English professor here at the college, what have you had professors do that helped you, and what have you had professors do that hurt you?
I feel like the best professors that I've had are the ones that have taken an individualistic approach to each of their students. I know I was the president of Phi Beta Lambda last year, and I talk a lot about that. What I learned was most beneficial in that leadership sense was working with each student individually. If you take a one-size-fits-all approach to anything, to leadership, to teaching, you won't be successful. I feel like the professors that I've had, some of the best classes I've taken have been the ones that I thought I was going to struggle the most in. And that's because, as I've said, I ask for help. I tell them right away, this class is going to be challenging for me because of X, Y, and Z. And it's those professors that don't just say, okay, well, take notes in my class. Because I've had professors that have said that to me. Okay, take better notes. Okay, don't miss any classes. But the professors that said, okay, come to my office hours, sit down with me, and tell me step by step how I can help you, those are the classes I've done the best in, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think the most important thing a teacher has ever done for me was motivate me to do better in school. And he did this by showing his passion for math. Dr. Ukazim, I don't think he's here anymore, but he was so passionate about the subject that it drove me, and like when I would leave the classroom, I would just want to do math. And before his class, I was terrified of math. But him showing me his passion and the opportunities that could be presented to you if you were good at math, I think that really drove me to do well.
Is that for us too? So my experiences that informed me are the experiences I had in the classroom. So all the schools I went to were kind of like classes where the professors were more en boss. And so every classroom I construct, it's a collaboration. So I try to make it as inviting as I possibly can, but still making it as stringent as I possibly can. And I found that to be successful. I also have a healthy dose of sensitivity around different people because my life experiences are informed by those sensitivities that I have, those insecurities that I have, those insecurities that I hide. So I tell folks, and Pelchat will tell you this, I say I recognize and understand pain because I've been in pain. And when I'm able to articulate and show them how I process that pain in a very positive way, all of a sudden learning becomes fun and it becomes an outlet, and as opposed to a deterrent.
Thinking back to my HR classes, I had a woman, Susan Warner, who is no longer with us, but she really had a big impact on me. And the reason she was impactful, she taught not just the HR, theories and the employment law, but she made it real. And she would talk about in the workplace, when this kind of crazy thing happens, how do you handle this as an HR professional? She made it real. She also emphasized the importance of not just the curriculum, but staying up to date on the material, knowing who are the thought leaders in the field. She's like, you think you're going to graduate and you're done? Guess again, you're not. She said, if you want to be a relevant HR professional, you have to know who are the thought leaders, what are the books, what are the topics, what are the new systems. And I never forgot that lesson. To this day, I'm a member of SHRM and actively participate. I speak at those groups. But that was the influence she had. It wasn't just about, hey, we want you to pass the test. It was about, we want you to succeed in life in this profession. That was very helpful.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you. My name's Liz Knoll. I'm a 1985 graduate of Montgomery County Community College, and I think I actually went to Prudential right after I graduated here, so we might have worked together. And Damien, I can actually identify with this idea of fear, because at the time I was a single mother. And fortunately at that time, the reason I came to Montgomery County Community College was because there was a what we called a parents club, and it was a cooperative where the students, most of whom were single moms, could watch each other's children while we went to school. They gave us a room, and that was the one thing I would not have been able to do that, and many of the women I know would not have been able to get through college. I went on to Temple, I got my bachelor's and master's, and I got a PhD from Penn, and have been working in research around student parents. And I wonder if any of you were student parents, maybe not, you haven't mentioned it, or you know of anyone who has been and what their experience has been. We have a wonderful child care center here. Now, it is unfortunately out of the reach, financial reach, of many of low-income student parents. I've actually done my dissertation research here at Montgomery County Community College with low-income parents who were on welfare in the KEYS program. So I know the issues that they've been struggling with. So I wonder, number one, if anyone knows in your teaching experience or other parents what kinds of support you think that they need. And I also wonder about the survey you talked about. There were, I don't know if this was in the survey, the 25% of your students who are first-gen students, if that was coming from the survey you talked about, or if it's something else. And were you able to identify in that survey who were also struggling with trying to raise a family while they were trying to finish school, because what I learned from my research is that the motivation is very high. I mean, it's really up there. But I've also learned from the studies I've done with some national institutes that the graduation rate for single mothers is 8%. 8%. And so I just wondered if you had any information about student parents in terms of that.
So one of the things that I try to do with students, and I've had a couple already even this semester, bring their kids to the classroom. And so we have this process. We tell them on the first day, do this little test where we'll confess our sins. But I try to, as best I can, make it a community event. My sister was pregnant with my nephew at 16. You know, my mom had us at a young age. She's 1 to 13, so I kind of saw it. And so I try to lower as many barriers as I possibly can and help them not feel victimized somehow. So it's more art than science, and I think it's just a function of just caring a little bit. It doesn't really take a whole lot to just say, you know what, I'm vested in you. And my experience has been favorable so far.
Yeah, so I have a couple friends that they're my age and they have children, and they work a lot, and they always tell me, because they see me, I'm one of my only friends that goes to school, and they tell me, hey, like I want to go to school, but like I don't know what classes to take, I don't know what to major in. So I think if there was like, I don't know how to inspire them or how to tell them that a career is for them, because you could tell them, yeah, you should go there, study this, be an engineer, blah, blah, but it's a lot more difficult than that. I feel like if you can show them like the bigger picture and the outcome, I don't know how we would do that, but if they see like the bigger picture and the outcome, I think that would motivate them to start taking classes, and it would motivate them to do well.
Others who have successfully completed college while raising young children. I mean, I can think of one person in particular who I worked with who got pregnant at a very young age, got her bachelor's degree, got her master's degree. Now, she didn't sleep a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, like there's a lot of, you got to make it a priority. But I think if you have people who successfully done it, who can explain, this is how I did it, and I'm so glad I did.
Well, part of it too has to come from the institution, right? The supports in the institution. So I'm not sure exactly, where Montco stands on that. I have talked to a few of the people in student success, some of the staff, and I know that they're concerned about it. It'd just be, interesting to know where the college would stand on that.
So let me tell you something that was interesting to me. We actually had a case, but I don't know if you remember this. We had a student from North Carolina who was hitting a hurricane and the whole nine, and we were looking for babysitters. You remember that? And you hooked me up with your VP, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, Phil. And we set her up. I offered to extend her time. She still quit. So, and let me tell you, that hurts me, that 8%, because I got generations in North Philadelphia that's part of that percentage, right? And I don't know what to do, right? I'm going to tell you, honestly, as a black man, I cry every day.
Yeah.
I look at my success and I say, how can I not duplicate that? It hurts, okay? For me, I'd say I can only do the best I can. Mm-hmm. And here we have a program. We have a daycare here. So, at some point, I tell my family, accountability starts and ends with you.
Well, that's exactly true, and that's why I'm saying, the motivation for the women I've known and interviewed and nationally in the national reports is very high. And there are actually lists of items that colleges can do. So there are plenty of things that can be done. I was just curious, but thank you for your response.
Thank you for the wonderful question. If you can stick around afterwards, we'd be happy to continue the conversation with you. I know some people have to leave. We're near the end, so I'd like to bring Dr. Orkilomi back up to offer a few wrapping words. Thank you, panel.
Thank you all so much. I want to say thank you to Teresa, to Damon, to Carletta. to Nicoletta and Carlos. I put you together, not that way, so not Hollywood. But really just want to thank each and every one of you for sharing your stories, for the courage that you have in inspiring each of us today, and really for helping us to learn. And I hope for the audience you can see, we weren't cherry picking people to put up here just to sort of say, here we are, and we've done, first generation college students, and it's all great. We did this intentionally because we want to hear from you. We want to learn from you, taking many notes as we sat there in terms of what we can look at as an institution of how to better support you, and really just encourage you to keep that communication with us so that we can get more insight into the things that we can do to help you. We really want to thank our audience. Faculty who are here, please go back and share with your colleagues the insight and things that you've taken away today, because the more we have these kinds of engagement and dialogue and hear from our students, and hearing both sides, it was interesting to listen to Nicoletta and Carlos, and I'm going for help, and so what's that? Because those are our students, very different perspectives coming from different places. Where we need to do is ensure that we offer that opportunity. That's really what we're about, that we offer the opportunity. And then we hope that you can be motivated to take that opportunity. And even for some students where motivation may be a challenge to find, because that for some students is just half the battle. It's easy to say, well, go for help. Why didn't you go for help? We can be part of motivating students to do that. This has been recorded, so please share, and I will put that out publicly for faculty and staff who want to play this back and get this insight, because we really do want to share this with everyone. Finally, I want to remind you their general faculty meeting on Wednesday. We are taking it live to West, so excited to do that. And sorry, Central, but you will be watching via screen. It's important that we do that. And then on November 1st, this is actually for everyone. This coming Friday, we have the Dialogue Institute, which again is part of our year of belonging. Similar to what we've done today, we have a panel. We have invited people to come and speak, and we open up the floor to be vulnerable, to be raw, to tell it like it is, so that we can all learn from each other. So I invite you from 12:30 to 2 o'clock on Friday in Park House. Lunch will be served. Please join us as well. So again, on behalf of my dean colleagues, of Dr. Basteki Perez, of the entire Academic Affairs Suite, we would like to thank you for joining us at this Dean Series for this year, and we invite you again back next year because we'll have even more exciting things. And thank you to Dr. Bretz for moderating, and again to all our panel speakers. Have a great afternoon, everyone.